In 1453, the world watched as the walls of Constantinople, long thought impregnable, finally succumbed to the might of the Ottoman Empire. Mehmed II, the young and ambitious sultan, led the charge that brought an end to the Byzantine Empire, a political and cultural institution that had endured for over 1,000 years. The fall of Constantinople sent shockwaves through Europe, altering the balance of power, reshaping trade routes, and signaling the rise of a new empire that would dominate the region for centuries. The Ottomans' victory was not only a military triumph, but a transformative event that would change the trajectory of Europe and the Middle East. Europe reacted to the fall of Constantinople with a mixture of fear, awe, and uncertainty. For centuries, the Byzantine Empire had acted as a buffer between European states and the expanding powers of Anatolia and the Middle East. Its collapse exposed Europe to the rapid expansion of Ottoman influence. Leaders across the continent recognized that the young sultan's ambition was boundless, and that his empire, fueled by military innovation and disciplined armies, posed a new and formidable threat. The use of massive cannons during the siege demonstrated a technological leap in warfare, proving that even the strongest fortifications could be overcome. This revelation challenged traditional European military thinking and created an urgent sense of vulnerability. The conquest of Constantinople marked the beginning of a period of aggressive Ottoman expansion into the Balkans and Eastern Europe. The empire, strategically positioned between Europe and Asia, leveraged its control of key trade routes to strengthen its economy and consolidate power. Cities such as Edirne and later Istanbul became administrative and cultural hubs, attracting scholars, merchants, and artisans. The Ottomans' ability to govern diverse populations with efficiency and pragmatism allowed them to maintain stability even in newly conquered regions. Europe, observing from the north and west, realized that the Ottoman Empire was no passing threat, but a rising power capable of challenging centuries-old kingdoms. Mehmed II's leadership after the conquest exemplified the combination of vision, military skill, and administrative acumen that made the Ottoman Empire formidable. The young sultan rebuilt and repopulated Istanbul, transforming it into a thriving metropolis and a symbol of Ottoman authority. He integrated the city's diverse population, including Christians and Jews, into the imperial system, demonstrating both pragmatism and political foresight. This approach allowed the empire to flourish culturally and economically, turning a military victory into lasting political influence. The strategic location of Istanbul also allowed the Ottomans to control trade routes between Europe and Asia, giving them unprecedented leverage over regional commerce. The ripple effects of Constantinople's fall were felt across Europe. With traditional land routes to Asia now under Ottoman control, European powers began to seek alternative paths for trade and exploration. This urgency contributed directly to the Age of Discovery, as nations like Portugal and Spain embarked on ambitious voyages to find new maritime routes to India, China, and the Spice Islands. Scholars fleeing the fallen city carried ancient manuscripts and classical knowledge to Western Europe, accelerating the Renaissance and reshaping European intellectual life. The fall of Constantinople thus served as a catalyst for both economic and cultural transformation across the continent. The Ottomans' expansion into the Balkans further intensified European concern. Territories such as Greece, Bulgaria, and Serbia came under Ottoman influence, creating a buffer zone that extended the empire's reach into Central Europe. The Ottomans' military organization, including disciplined infantry, elite janissaries, and mobile cavalry, enabled them to conduct rapid campaigns and maintain control over distant provinces. European kingdoms, witnessing the efficiency and resilience of the Ottoman military, faced the reality that traditional armies and fortifications were increasingly inadequate. Alliances were formed, and occasional resistance emerged, but the Ottomans' combination of military might and administrative skill made long-term European opposition difficult. Economically, the Ottomans leveraged their geographic position to dominate key trade routes connecting Europe, Asia, and Africa. Control over the Bosporus, the Dardanelles, and the Aegean allowed the empire to regulate the flow of goods, including spices, silk, and grain. This economic influence strengthened the empire internally, enabling investment in military campaigns, infrastructure, and cultural projects. European merchants and states had to adapt, seeking maritime routes and forging new trading networks, which in turn stimulated technological innovation and economic competition across the continent. The Ottoman Empire's rise thus reshaped global commerce, placing it at the center of economic and political power. Culturally, the empire flourished under the Ottomans' leadership. Scholars, artists, and architects contributed to a vibrant intellectual climate in Istanbul, transforming the city into a beacon of learning and creativity. The construction of mosques, palaces, and public works reflected the empire's wealth and sophistication. The Ottomans' emphasis on integrating diverse cultural traditions allowed for a synthesis of art, science, and governance that strengthened the empire internally while projecting prestige abroad. Europe, observing from across the continent, recognized both the sophistication and the ambition of this new power, further amplifying the sense of shock and urgency. Religiously and politically, the Ottomans demonstrated remarkable pragmatism. While the empire was Islamic, it governed Christian, Jewish, and other minority populations with a degree of tolerance that facilitated stability. Local leaders were often retained, and administrative systems were adapted to accommodate existing social structures. This ability to govern diversity effectively allowed the empire to expand without succumbing to internal fragmentation, a common pitfall for large empires. European observers saw the Ottomans not just as conquerors, but as a state capable of long-term administration and influence. The fall of Constantinople and the subsequent Ottoman expansion reshaped diplomatic relations in Europe. Kingdoms and city-states began forming coalitions to counter the growing power of the Ottomans, while others sought alliances with the empire to protect trade interests or gain political leverage. The Ottoman Empire's ability to balance diplomacy with military strength became a hallmark of its strategy, ensuring survival and dominance in a highly competitive regional environment. The empire's reputation for both fearsome military power and pragmatic governance reinforced Europe's perception of an unstoppable force rising to prominence. Over the decades, the Ottomans continued to consolidate power in the Balkans and beyond, reaching their zenith under Suleiman the Magnificent in the 16th century. The empire controlled vast territories, maintained a sophisticated administrative system, and projected influence across 3 continents. The foundations laid by Osman Gazi, Mehmed II, and successive leaders allowed the Ottomans to endure challenges ranging from internal revolts to external threats, demonstrating resilience, adaptability, and strategic vision. Europe's initial shock transformed into cautious respect and calculated opposition as the empire solidified its position as a global power. The fall of Constantinople and the rise of the Ottoman Empire exemplify the transformative power of ambition, strategy, and innovation. Europe's initial tremor of fear was justified. The empire that emerged was formidable, organized, and culturally sophisticated. The Ottomans had not merely conquered a city, they had created a state capable of enduring centuries, influencing trade, culture, and politics across continents. The empire's ability to turn conquest into lasting governance demonstrated a unique combination of vision, resilience, and pragmatism, lessons that continue to resonate for historians and observers today. Reflecting on this moment in history, it is clear that the Ottomans reshaped the world order. Europe trembled not only because a city had fallen, but because a new era of power had emerged, one that demanded adaptation, innovation, and awareness. The conquest of Constantinople set the stage for Ottoman dominance in the Eastern Mediterranean, the Balkans, and the Middle East. It also influenced the trajectory of European exploration, trade, and culture, leaving an indelible mark on the history of both continents. The Ottoman Empire's expansion after Constantinople illustrates that empires are forged not merely through conquest but through vision, administration, and resilience. Mehmed II's triumph demonstrated that strategic leadership and technological innovation could overcome centuries-old institutions. The empire's subsequent success in governance, trade, and culture solidified its place as a central actor in world history. Europe's initial shock was the prelude to a centuries-long engagement with a power that had emerged from Anatolia to reshape the political, economic, and cultural landscapes of the known world.